The top stories. Addis Ababa increasingly becoming a preferred destination for international conferences, says Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And IMF says Ethiopia's central bank is leading transformative reform. Ladies and gentlemen, this is EBC World, the voice of Pan-Africanism. Many thanks for watching us. With the news, I'm Shifara Olako. Now, Ethiopia says the global South's voices, expectations and concerns have to be taken very seriously. The remark came from Ethiopian ambassador to Moscow, Gannet Tashoma, who led Ethiopian delegation participating in the 13th international meeting of high-level security representatives from over 100 countries in Moscow, Russia. During the opening session, Russia's President Vladimir Putin addressed the participants and underlined that the new international security architecture must be equal and indivisible, and that all states must receive firm guarantees of their own security, but not at the expense of the security and interests of other countries. Many delegations stressed that the current international order faces complex and multifaceted security, economic, and social challenges, particularly to the countries of the South. Adhering to multilateralism by respecting the UN Charter and international law was called for by many participants at the meeting with a view to addressing these challenges. In this regard, Ambassador Gannet Tashoma noted that the efforts to reform the international architecture that would disregard the wishes and aspirations of the global South will be doomed to failure. The ambassador further stated that the advancement of artificial intelligence and the growing threats of cyber technology are presenting serious security challenges for the global South. In this respect, the cooperation among all countries to strengthen BRICS cyber emergency response team is very critical. Ambassador Gannet stressed Ethiopia has also participated in the informal multilateral cooperation meeting of the BRICS member states held on Wednesday, it was learned. Moving on, Addis Ababa has reinforced its position as a premier hub for international diplomacy and conference tourism with the successful hosting of multiple high-level regional and global summits in recent weeks, the Ethiopian Foreign Ministry said. Briefing media Thursday, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ambassador Nebiat Getachew explained Addis Ababa's recent hosting of major regional and international events, underscoring the city's growing status as a diplomatic and conference center for Africa and beyond. He cited events such as ETEX 2025, the ILO Africa Regional Meeting, the ID4 Africa Conference, 2 IGAD Summits, the Africa Insurance Organization Conference, and the Ethiopia Finance Forum as evidence of the capital's rising prominence in the global conference arena. The high-level events confirm Addis Ababa's role not only as the diplomatic capital of Africa, but also as a leading venue for international gatherings, Ambassador Nebiat said. In addition to developments in economic and political diplomacy, the spokesperson also provided updates on Ethiopia's citizen-oriented diplomatic efforts. He announced that more than 700 Ethiopians who were stranded in Myanmar have been successfully repatriated. The ministry urged citizens to refrain from illegal travel to countries with which Ethiopia does not have formal labor agreements, stressing that such journeys often result in dire humanitarian conditions. Ambassador Nebiat emphasized the importance of community awareness in discouraging unsafe migration.
Located about 500 kilometers from Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, and about 35 kilometers downstream from the town of Bahir Dar and Lake Tana, is the mighty, mystical Blue Nile Falls. The locals call it Tisa Bay Falls and is believed to have some special powers. Tisa Bay means water that smokes. Ooh, I can see the water already.
Yeah, this is a blue.
Blue? This water is not blue.
It's brown.
Brown Nile.
Because, you know,
Is this the Nile?
this is the blue Nile.
This is the Blue Nile.
Blue Nile.
Thank you. So I'm going to buy one of these for entertainment because he has entertained me even if I don't know how to blow it. Pick a nice one.
Gordon's a bit of a cowboy. He's got his own style of doing things.
Welcome back. Now, climate change is directly contributing to humanitarian emergencies from heat waves, wildfires, floods, tropical storms, and hurricanes, and they are increasing in scale, frequency, and intensity. Research shows that 3.6 billion people already live in areas highly susceptible to climate change. Between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year from undernutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress alone. The Climate Resilient Green Economy Technical Group held a meeting on the upcoming Second Africa Climate Summit to be held from September 8 to 10 here in Addis Ababa. Tigastar Nisa reports.
The Climate Resilient Green Economy Technical Group meeting, which aimed at discussing for the Second Africa Climate Summit AS2 to be held from September 8 to 10, 2025, has been held. Chaired by Ethiopian Ministry of Planning and Development, along with Norwegian and British embassies in Addis Ababa, the meeting has tabled updates and mapping of climate initiatives by members going forward. In his opening remarks, State Minister of Ethiopian Ministry of Planning and Development, Seyum Mekonnen, has stressed that in hosting the African Climate Summit, Ethiopia envisioned to change narratives from Africa being a victim to the continent that can take a global leadership in shaping global climate solutions.
The vision of the government of Ethiopia in hosting this summit and gathering is to change the traditional narrative of Africa as always being a victim to climate change. But Africa can take a global leadership in shaping global climate solutions. This could be showcased and manifested in a number of practical climate actions in Ethiopia and the whole Africa. This is again very important in an era where multilateralism is highly challenged. Building on our national bold climate actions such as green legacy and renewable energy production, as well as the outcome of the first African Climate Summit, we, with our capacity of being a host of African Climate Summit 2, would like to catalyze the dialogue into the climate solution that Africa has, that financing nature-based and technology solution that will well fit for the African and then beyond. In parallel to our national commitment, including climate-smart agriculture initiatives such as the Lema Trufat, the green legacy, renovation of corridor of Addis Ababa, e-mobility policy intervention, and transformative climate-smart infrastructure development across the country, showcasing not only Ethiopia's leadership, but also determination for green and sustainable development.
Representatives from both British and Norwegian embassies in Addis Ababa, for their parts, has disclosed their keenness to work collectively with Ethiopian government and other development partners towards achieving a shared goal.
You will see that the ACS so far has a really strong focus on the emerging agenda of carbon markets, and this is close to our heart as the UK here in Ethiopia. We're really supporting the establishment of a carbon market here in Ethiopia, and particularly, or amongst others, we're funding work to establish a legal framework. And so maybe some of you have attended the recent workshop where the new carbon strategy was presented, where also the legal gaps analysis was presented. And so we as the UK are looking forward to continue this work and really help to get this over the line for implementation, so that hopefully soon we can have a functioning carbon market in Ethiopia, and for Ethiopia to really harness all the fantastic opportunities that could be within that reach.
Norway has been co-chairing the CRG forum since its very beginning, back in 2018. And since 2011, Norway has been working very closely with Ethiopia in operationalizing and implementing the CRG strategy. In Norway, we've had a particular focus on the forest, since forest has the largest mitigation potential in Ethiopia's NDCs. We are also now very much engaged in assisting the Ethiopian government on accessing the carbon markets, and mostly the forestry related. So in order to achieve the targets in Ethiopia's ambitious CRG strategy, institutional coordination is important, but also the coordination amongst many of us who are here today, the development partners.
The meeting has brought together various stakeholders, mainly government representatives and development partners active in climate action in Ethiopia, to work towards a common goal, building climate resilient and green economy.
A principal scientist at the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics says crops like sorghum, pearl millet and legumes are key for climate resilience due to their drought tolerance and nutritional values. Speaking to EBC World's Addis dialogue, the principal scientist Andre van Rooyen recommends Ethiopia should exert extra effort to speed up its shift from subsistence to commercial farming to improve food security, attract investment, and raise rural incomes. Jerusalem Batzea presents the story as follows.
Approached by ABC's Addis Dialogue, Principal Scientist Andre van Rooyen from the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics emphasized the critical role of crops like sorghum, pearl, millet, and legumes in enhancing resilience to climate change. He highlighted that these crops not only tolerate drought but also offer high nutrition value, making them essential for future food security.
The sorghums and the millets and the associated dryland legumes are critical for a number of reasons. We have the major crops, rice, wheat, maize, and those contribute significantly to food security. But the crops ECRIS work on, the millets, the sorghums, and the dryland legumes, play a critical role in the drylands. They do very well in the drier areas, but more importantly, the ECRIS crops contribute significantly to human nutrition.
Van Rooyen also stressed the importance of engaging the private sector through partnerships, seed commercialization, and agribusiness support to accelerate the scaling of agricultural technologies.
We need the private sector to help sell and distribute seed to farmers, fertilizers, the chemicals that we need to control pests and diseases. So on the input side, the private sector is paramount to get the crops growing efficiently in farmers' fields. But then we also need the private sector to buy the products from farmers, to transport the products, to process the products, and eventually all the way to retailers and the small shops on the side of the road that sell the products. So without the private sector, the larger ecosystem of agricultural production to consumption cannot function.
Furthermore, he urged Ethiopia to intensify its transition from subsistence to commercial farming, citing the need to enhance food security, attract investment, and boost rural incomes.
Transition between subsistence farming and market-oriented development is what ECRISAT used to call it. We had our IMOD model, which is integrated market-oriented development, where we want to take farmers from a subsistence to a more market-oriented approach. Now, one need to understand that subsistence agriculture has been practiced, especially in Ethiopia, for 4,000 years. Okay, so it's not something that we're going to change overnight. And I would suggest that certain farmers are more agriculturally oriented, so they may be more inherently interested in commercial agriculture. Others use subsistence agriculture primarily to eke out a living. And we need to understand that when we talk about small-scale farmers or subsistence farmers in the rural areas, it's not a homogeneous mass. There are many different aspirations and people in there. Some are interested in agriculture, some would much rather do a job in the city.
According to Van Rooyen, Africa must evolve its own brand of agriculture rooted in its diverse agroecologies, cultural practices, and socioeconomic realities. In this regard, open pollinated varieties should be seen as a strategic priority for Ethiopia and the broader African continent. The International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, a national organization dedicated to improving dryland farming and agri-food systems to combat hunger, malnutrition, poverty, and environmental degradation affecting 2.1 billion people in the drylands of Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and beyond.
Ethiopia has taken historic steps to address macroeconomic imbalances while fostering sustainable growth. That's according to the IMF. Over the past year, Ethiopia embarked on a comprehensive transformation of its monetary and exchange rate regimes. The authorities are also tackling budgetary constraints, financial vulnerabilities in state-owned enterprises and state-owned banks, and sovereign debt restructuring while mitigating social impacts and managing humanitarian pressures. The IMF is supporting Ethiopia's reform efforts through a 4-year, $3.4 billion extended credit facility agreement. During the 2025 IMF World Bank spring meetings, Mamo Meretu, governor of the National Bank of Ethiopia, discussed these key reforms with Ababa Amroselase, director of the IMF's African department. Mamo Meretu said after 2 decades of sustained economic growth, primarily driven by public investment, Ethiopia faced unsustainable macroeconomic imbalances. The state's reliance on external creditors, the large public bank, and NBE led to foreign exchange shortage, limited access to credit for the private sector, high inflation, financial stability risks, and debt vulnerabilities. The governor also told the director that Ethiopia has made historic changes, including the revision of the Central Bank Act to prioritize price stability. It also introduced a monetary policy rate, implemented open market operations for liquidity management with banks, and established a monetary policy committee to advise on monetary policy decisions based on comprehensive assessments of economic conditions. Interest rates are now positive in real terms. Inflation has declined from 30% to 13%. All the viewers, you have been watching EBC World. Now a quick recap of the top stories. Addis Ababa increasingly becoming a preferred destination for international conferences, says Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And IMF says Ethiopia's central bank is leading transformative reform. Well, the viewers, with that, we come to the end of today's news. Many thanks for watching us.